This is unique. This is rare. This is odd. This is the Parker Brothers Pro Football Game. Or the Chapman Pro Football Game, if you prefer. We'll get into the two names later. Weird looking thing, eh? Almost like a picture frame. You notice anything else weird? It has CFL theming. I know what you're thinking. That's neat, but why can't you just take an American football board game and adapt it to the rules to match the Canadian code? Fair point, especially now that the 55-yard line is gone. We don't really have an answer to that question, but being CFL themed out of the box is kind of neat. If it wasn't obvious already, our version is second-hand and looks like it lived in a garage for most of its life, so we're missing a few pieces. We've had to recreate the Alouettes and Lions nameplates even though they were around in the late 60s, early 70s, and they give you a few extra blank plates because, hey, I'm sure Chapman expected the CFL to expand a bit between 1969 and today. We could make a plate for the Miami Manatee, just saying. But I digress. We don't have the cardboard legs, nor do we have the metal plinko ball. Do you think if we send a spare parts request to Parker Brothers, they'll honor it? We didn't think so either. In the spirit of the CFL, we will soldier on with a plucky attitude and a smile on our face. Let's break out the tools and get ready to play some CFL football. There really isn't much about Fred Chapman prior to this board game, but from what we can find, he was living in Toronto in the 1960s, possibly working for Dymo of Canada, and watched a ton of Canadian football for over a year to develop his rule set. Yes, it's that Dymo Industries, the label and stationery maker that still exists today. Chapman had an idea, Dymo had the production line, so Chapman Sports Games became a division of Dymo, and by Christmas of 1969, the CFL Pro Football Game was being advertised for sale at around $15. There was the obvious CFL version, but also an American version released in Buffalo. We hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it doesn't look like the game was quite the success Dymo had expected. It's large, clunky, and a bit repetitive. Chapman and Dymo stuck with it through 1970, but by October of 1971, Parker Brothers seemed to have bought up all the unsold stock, and Dymo went back to just being a stationery company. The bros slapped the overstock into a new flashy box, put together the unfinished frames, see mine versus the Chapman original, and sold them for a few bucks cheaper. The last ad we could find for the Parker Brothers Pro Football Game is in 1975, where it's being blown out at a roughly third of the original price. Throughout the early 70s, interest seems to have waned significantly, leading to this being quite a rarity in the modern world, especially one that's complete. Since ours isn't even close to being complete, we'll have to make our own pieces. If you watched our Dawson Hockey Club Stanley Cup video, you'll notice that we modified an old Stiga hockey game. That was about $30 at a garage sale, and we had to repair it to bring it back into working order. This was very much the same, even price-wise. We had missing pegs, missing pieces, missing teams, missing the play ball, and the game had been out of print for about 50 years. One fruitful trip to the hobby store later, and we scored some 3/8-inch OD tubing and 1/4-inch plastic rod, for the one missing guard and multiple missing players respectively. We had some leftover clear plastic sprue from a Tau Fire Warrior set to replace a missing plinko peg. For posterity, the pegs are 1/8-inch OD, and everything else seems to be 3/8-inch, even the legs that stand the board up. A ton of cutting, drilling, 3D modeling, and painting later, et voila, one Chapman/Parker Brothers Canadian Pro Football completely restored. So, let's play the damn thing. I'm an Elks fan, so I chose them, and my opponent, local wildlife impersonator Chase the Fox, was handed the Rough Riders. The Regina ones, not the Ottawa ones. Welcome to the first ever dive bowl between the Edmonton Elks and the Regina Rough Riders. The coin is flipped. French Charles Entertainment Cheese was chosen by the visitor. Chuck comes up English, so the ball goes to Edmonton to start. The gameplay loop can be summed up pretty simply. Plinko with some shuffling. The setup is always the same. Chapman himself even recommends gluing what he calls the slip men into place for expedient play. He also assumes you're going to break a peg or two, have some CA glue handy prior to playing. The only moving pieces are the play ball, the defensive blockers, the football marker, and the 10-yard marker. The gameplay is repetitive. You pick the ball, the opponent moves their defensive blockers as necessary, you put the ball into the corresponding hole, and watch the marble fall. What makes it fun is the unpredictable nature of the plinko setup. As Chapman explained, you actually put the ball in play, and Plinko is just fun to watch. However, the randomness also makes the game pretty bad when it comes to strategy. Even the penalties are random. The penalty markers move up every quarter, and once the ball passes through one of the penalty gates, either side could be penalized. You could have the best strategy in the world, but everything comes down to how the ball interacts with the pegs. During our game, we found interceptions to be far more common than usual. Fumbles were far more rare, and the game resorted to a back-and-forth play pattern of long bombs to get up the field, then grinding out a touchdown with a ground play. Conversions were much more rare as well. That could be down to a sticky peg or a flat spot on the kick Plinko board, who knows. We probably played the game wrong, we probably missed a bunch of stuff, but the goal was to have fun, and overall, much fun was had. In the first ever Dive Bowl, the Regina Rough Riders destroyed the Edmonton Elks 48-7. Pretty typical for an Elks game in the 2020s. It's pretty slim pickings for CFL fans when it comes to games. Outside of a few video and board games, all we have is our imagination. Do we recommend Chapman's for any CFL fan? Sure, why not? Hang it on your wall, at least it looks good. But if you're into hardcore football simulation, you won't really like this at all. It's much too random. Aside from that, it's a well thought out board and a unique system of play. Chase had fun, and he isn't really into football. Maybe this is a good gateway to the world of Canadian football in general. If you can find one in good condition for less than $20, they're a fun afternoon with the kids watching marbles Plinko down the pegs. And they're fairly easy to restore. Thanks for watching.